Good evening, everyone. For Telesur English, I'm Sarah Begum in Caracas, Venezuela. The Committee of Victims of last year's violent protests in Venezuela have held an ecumenical act for peace in Caracas, 1 year after the beginning of the confrontations called by sectors of the opposition. Relatives and human rights advocates paid tribute to the victims of the so-called guarimbas that affected many parts of the country for 4 months. 43 people were killed as a result of the barricades and attacks on the public buildings. Over 800 were wounded. The religious activity was led by Venezuela's Attorney General, who insisted justice would be done.
I want to repeat what I said a few days ago. The ministry is going to obtain justice for all the victims who lost their relatives. We are going to investigate everything that has occurred and punish those responsible. The ministry is committed to this.
Thousands of young people have also been marching for peace in Venezuela on the 201st anniversary of the Battle of Victory, an important date in the country's struggle for independence. President Maduro had declared it the Day of Youth. The marchers also condemned the violence of last year when sectors of the opposition tried to claim the day as their own.
Here in the streets, we send a clear and direct message to the North American empire that wants and pretends to bring up sanctions against Venezuela.
1 year after that attempt of the coup d'etat by the international right and the Yankee interference, we, the youth of the Venezuelan homeland, Chavez's children, we're here today in Caracas, marching for peace and justice.
The foreign ministers of Ecuador and Venezuela have met the Russian energy minister Alexander Novak in Moscow. They discussed strategies for boosting the price of oil. Ricardo Patiño of Ecuador, who currently holds the presidency of CELAC, also expressed the support of Latin America and the Caribbean for the Ukrainian peace accords. This Saturday, both foreign ministers will visit Greece to support the new government of Alexis Tsipras. During his State of the Nation address last month, President Nicolas Maduro played a recording of the telephone conversation between two opposition figures, both of them retired officers of the Venezuelan armed forces. It helps to explain the rethinking of radical right-wing elements in the country's opposition.
Long lines at the supermarket, a weapon of war for Venezuela's opposition. That's the evidence of a telephone conversation between two retired officers that goes some way to explaining the economic war in Venezuela. The officers are Ivan Caratu, currently on the run in Miami, and José de Jesus Gámez, who has already been arrested. It was recorded last November.
Rivero is one of the key people working with Leopoldo López. I don't know how you get on with them.
Listen to what we have. In the poor neighborhoods, when things get rough, we'll encourage people to wish Chavez were back. Of course, it's a psychological operation to give us more credibility. That gives us strength. But their methods will be the same as last February.
In February last year, the opposition called violent demonstrations known as guarimbas. 43 people were killed. The aim, to overthrow President Maduro. The plot went on to its next phase, economic war. Vital products became scarce. The lines grew longer. People became more and more anxious. That's when they would act.
In places where people are lining up, there will be acts of violence. If there's a window, they'll smash it. And when that happens, people will start looting. So we'll begin to trigger a wave of violent looting.
Earlier this year, there were some acts of violence. Pictures of attempts to loot supermarkets circulated on social media.
This will mean the National Guard will begin to repress not just a group of opposition students from the oligarchy, but rather they'll come down on the people, on the poor who are lining up. That's our strategy. So we'll send the students not to the main avenues, but to the state supermarkets where there are long lines. They'll go there and begin to burn tires and stir things up.
The idea was to provoke confrontations with the National Guard guarding the supermarkets.
They'll go for the National Guard. The security forces will react and attack. Then they'll be attacked by the people themselves. This is our best bet for creating chaos. Because if a student is arrested, it's not the same as some old lady in the line being hit with birdshot. So these guys really have to go for it. Talking of peace is a strategy to show the world we are peaceful, but our actions aim to do as much damage as possible. On this, we are clear.
The officers explain how the students will be used to implement the plan.
So they told me to talk to you. I sent that material to you and various others. So it's the students who will set the streets ablaze. What I sent to you explains how they will confront the National Guard. It's the only way. At supermarkets like Mercal, Pedeval, Bicentenario, Garzón, what we want is this government out.
President Maduro called for calm.
The last thing we want to encourage or tolerate is a social explosion. I'm certain that the immense majority of our people, who remember what happened last year and its causes, think the same and love peace. I want to thank sincerely, in the name of the Bolivarian government and the country, the extraordinary patience and the commitment to peace shown by our people.
2 people have been arrested in connection with this conversation and the plot behind it. The violence planned for January never materialized.
Yo la siento con ustedes, queridos compatriotas.
For the latest on the situation with the FARC in Colombia, Natalia Margarita reports from Bogotá.
The head of the FARC's peace delegation, Ivan Marquez, has announced that from Havana, Cuba, this leftist guerrilla will no longer accept minors under the age of 17. The FARC's announcement comes as the 32nd round of Colombia's peace negotiations concluded, but also right at the time when Colombia is commemorating the day against the use of child soldiers. Marquez said the lack of education, opportunities, and hope must be tackled in order to prevent minors joining armed groups. The FARC has also denounced the presence of underage teens among the military, recalling that between January 2008 and December 2012, the government forced over 460,000 teenagers into service. He called on the Colombian government to stop its policy of forced recruitment, which is mainly directed towards the poor. The government chief negotiator, Humberto de la Calle, welcomed the FARC's latest decision, as he also made positive balance of the 32nd round of peace talks. Both parties involved expressed their desire to reach a final peace accord soon, as next cycle of negotiations is scheduled to begin on Wednesday, February 25th. From Bogotá, Natalia Margarita, Telesur.
The Argentine Senate has given preliminary approval to the reform of the intelligence services. The majority of the opposition did not attend the session and have called the law to be reappealed. And for the latest on the initial approval of the reform, we go to Leonel Poblete in Buenos Aires.
Yes, the reform of the Argentine intelligence system has gained a preliminary approval in the Argentine National Senate this Thursday afternoon. 38 votes yes, 7 no. That was the vote at the special session of the Argentine National Senate, where Alberto Nisman was formally honoured with a 1 minute of silence. It is apparent that the lower house will treat the bill in a special session, which could be held mid-next week. That's what they're telling us at this stage. Now, it must also be said that the vast majority of the opposition was absent at the session, unfulfilling, yet again, their institutional obligations, gaining the criticism of a vast sector of the Argentine society. From the Argentine National Congress, this is Leo Político reporting for Telesur.
Severe drought has forced cities and towns across Brazil to abandon or scale back their plans for the carnival, which is due to start on Friday. This should be the rainy season, but instead, the state of Sao Paulo is experiencing the 3rd consecutive year with soaring temperatures and rainfall patterns well below historic average. Some reservoirs at less than 5% capacity. In Chile, forest fires continue causing havoc in the Arauco region in southern Chile. Flames have destroyed more than 2,000 acres of forest. Authorities have built barriers to prevent the fire from spreading, but the threat continues. The Peruvian government has announced that the Argentinian gas company Pluspetrol will stop work in the Amazon region after at least 1 person was killed and a dozen injured in the protests. The violence broke out earlier this week when protesters in the town of Pichanaki tried to seize a police station and military barracks. Organisers say the police fired live bullets into the crowd. Greece has agreed to continue discussing its debt with officials of Eurogroup and other creditors, but not with the Troika, which the new Greek government refuses to recognise. The announcement came as the Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras attended his first informal EU summit in Brussels. The technical discussions with representatives of the European Commission, the European Central Bank and the IMF will begin Friday, ahead of another meeting with Eurogroup ministers on Monday.
I'm very confident that altogether we can find a mutually viable solution in order to heal the wounds of austerity, to tackle humanitarian crisis across the European Union, and to bring Europe back to the road of growth and social cohesion.
The father of 2 Muslim students murdered in North Carolina has called for the killings to be recognized as hate crime. Thousands of people turned out for the funeral of Dia Shadi Barakat, aged 23, his wife Yusuf Mohammed, aged 21, and her 19-year-old sister Razan Mohammed Abu Salha. The 3 were shot dead by a neighbor in the university town of Chapel Hill on Tuesday. The police say the murder is being investigated as a parking dispute, but the alleged murderer had made his anti-Muslim stance clear.
In honor of my children and everybody who was murdered unfairly in this world, I call upon the American people and the world to realize this was a hate crime and to treat it as such so that we can pay attention and be truthful to our countries we live in.
The United Nations refugee chief said that the European Union must establish a proper search and rescue operation in the Mediterranean to replace a woefully inadequate border patrol that failed to save hundreds of migrants who died this week. More than 300 people are feared to have died off the Libyan coast after they set sail in inflatable dinghies in rough, wintry conditions, adding pressure on Europe to expand a border operation that lacks a clear mandate to save lives.
It's obvious that the argument that this is a deterrence, not having a rescue operation, is not working. People are coming anyway. And so the question is, do we want to sacrifice their lives for border security? We believe that these lives should be saved.
The Spanish police evicted a single mother and her children. Activists attempted to stop the eviction but were unsuccessful. Activists have denounced the spate of evictions as savage. Elvira recently requested public housing but was denied even though there are thousands of empty properties. Hundreds of families in Spain are evicted every day after falling behind on mortgage payments, and under Spain's draconian laws, they must continue paying off the loan even after the home has been repossessed. In Germany, thousands of revelers celebrated the start of street carnival season in Cologne, famed for being one of the biggest party cities at this time of year. Cologne is one of 3 German carnival hotspots alongside Düsseldorf and Mainz, and the celebrations on Thursday are considered a countdown to the carnival season's climax next Monday. And to go out tonight, we have a homage to the great Argentine author Julio Cortázar, who died 31 years ago today. More on these and other stories on our website, telesortv.net/English. For Telesor English, I'm Sarah Begum. Good night.
Toco tu boca. Con un dedo toco el borde de tu boca. Voy dibujándola como si saliera de mi mano, como si por primera vez tu boca se entreabriera. Y me basta cerrar los ojos para deshacerlo todo y recomenzar. Hago nacer cada vez la boca que deseo, la boca que mi mano elige y te dibuja en la cara. Una boca elegida entre todas, con soberana libertad elegida por mí para dibujarla con mi mano en tu cara. Y que por un azar que no busco comprender, coincide exactamente con tu boca que sonríe por debajo de la que mi mano dibuja.